So again, welcome. My name is Nathan Agan. I'm an actor and host of the Working Actor's Journey podcast. And thank you so much for being part of our open workshop of Richard III. I will say, first of all, we've continued to have discussions of, what this is and what it might be. And so if you would like to get involved, you can submit your interest for future workshops, and I'll try to, let's see if I can drop some individual, or I can drop some links into the chat. Everyone, I'll figure out how to do that later. But there's a sign-up form for people to express your interest, whether you are interested in acting, directing, doing text work, voice work, monologue coaching, whatever you'd like to do. We're looking for actors of all levels, and all the positions I just mentioned. And please feel free to share that link with other actors and students and other people there's really looking for, how can we get as wide and diverse a group in terms of age and experience and all that kind of stuff. That's been part of the fun of this today, is bringing in different generations of actors and performers. So we're hoping to continue that. For anyone who wants to follow along, we're using the Folger version of the texts, and hopefully everyone can see the link I just put there. That's a link to the Richard III version. So if you wanted to follow along, you can use that text. And here, I'm just going to throw this link. This was the one I was trying to do before. So that second link is if you want to sign up for the workshop, for future workshops. And I will send out an email either tonight or tomorrow with links of everything I mentioned. So if you don't get a chance to write them down or click right now, you'll have them later. And I do want to say that I want to thank everybody for giving, for those who have signed up. We'll be able to make a donation of more than $100 to the Innocence Project, which is helping to overturn wrongful convictions. And if you would like to give more, if you attend this presentation and you're like, I want to give more to this project, registrations for this event will be open until 9 p.m. Pacific. So you can go back to where you're registered and just buy another ticket and whatever amount you'd like to put in there. So thank you again to everybody for being so generous. And the link for that I'll put in there as well. And I will quickly mention, I mentioned the podcast I have. There are members of the podcast. If you would like to be a premium member of the podcast, starting at just $2 a month, I'm offering early access to things and discounts, including for these workshops. So if that's something of interest, it's a way to just continue to support these creative endeavors. I want to thank everybody that you can see because they donated their time and talent. And like many artistic endeavors, it is a labor of love, and nobody's getting rich off these things. So we do appreciate the support to make them happen. Very quickly, how this will go. Gideon Rappaport, who's a dramaturg and teacher, he'll kind of start us off and give us a little bit of information and context. We'll do each of the scenes. The first scene, we're doing Act 1, Scene 1 of Richard III, and then Act 4, Scene 4. So it's easy to remember, 1-1 and 4-4. And depending on, we'll run the scenes, and if the actors want to work anything, or if anybody has any questions, that's an important point, and it was my next point. But we'll, go through the scenes a bit and then do a final period for a Q&A. If you do have questions, please use the Zoom chat function. Those messages will come right to me. And I only do that so that the actors are not distracted by, new chat questions coming in while they're performing. But don't worry, both myself and Kevin will be monitoring that and making sure if you do have any questions about what you're seeing, or if you want to ask about a piece of the text or something the actors are working on, that's an opportunity to do that. One thing I do need to mention is, unfortunately, Marcelo Toubert could not be with us this evening. But luckily, Geoffrey Wade has graciously stepped in to read the part of Clarence. He's been directing the scene. But he's also going to be performing Clarence. So with that, I think that's it for me. I see one question. Somebody asked where Angie is, And Angie's on my screen. So if for some reason, depending on the size of your screen, or if you don't have gallery view on, you might not see Angie. Or you might, if you have this is important, the hide non-participant view. Hopefully there were instructions when you saw that, but if you just see like a name on the screen, you can click in the like upper right corner of that box and say hide non-participant view. And that should shrink the number of actual faces. Right now, you should only see 9 boxes on your screen because that's how many people are on the call. Sorry, that's how many people have their video turned on. So if you don't see Angie or anyone else, you may have to be scrolling through your windows of Zoom windows. So, but that's it, a little technical thing. Good, the person who couldn't see Angie before can now see her. But hopefully that answered the questions for anybody else. And that's it. I will turn it over to Gideon, and I'll be in the background. I'll be off stage. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk a little about this play, Richard III. And I'm not going to say too much, but I want to give a little context. So the first thing to know is Shakespeare burst on the theatrical scene with the Henry VI plays, which were about English history and thrilling to everybody. And he's writing them about nearly 100-year period of wars called the Wars of the Roses. It started with the deposing of Richard II, and it ended with the defeat of Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. The odd thing about the 8 plays that Shakespeare wrote on this subject was that he wrote the 4 plays about the last part of this war first, and then he wrote the 4 plays about the first part of the war later. So what we're seeing is the 4th play that he wrote, but it's telling the story of the end of the series. When Richard II is deposed, it starts a war between 2 families. They're called the Lancaster family and the York family. The Lancasters have the red rose and the Yorks have the white rose, and they are essentially in battle for the next 85 to 90 years. Where we come in now, the Yorkists have done away with all of the Lancastrian pretenders to the throne. They've killed Henry VI, although his widow, the old Queen Margaret, is left alive. They've killed Henry VI's son, and they have come to power. And who are they? The Yorks. There are 3 brothers. The king, who is Edward IV, his next younger brother named Clarence, and his youngest brother named Richard. Richard's the hunchback. This play we're taking scenes from is going to give us Richard's rise to power and final destruction, demise. At the beginning of the play, his eldest brother is the king, and his middle brother, Clarence, is being sent to the Tower. And during the play, Richard is going to be responsible for getting rid of everyone between himself and the crown till he becomes king. So that the second scene we see are the ladies left alive lamenting the various deaths that Richard has caused. I'll introduce each scene particularly, but I wanted you to have that background so that you can put the whole thing in context. This is 100 years of civil war between 2 family claimants to the throne. And first, the one is on top, that's the Lancasters, and they are Henry IV and Henry V and Henry VI. And then come the Yorkist kings, and they're Edward IV, his son who gets killed during this play, finally Richard III. And when Richard is overthrown at the end of this play, the one who becomes king is Henry VII. He is named Tudor, and he founds the line that are the kings when Shakespeare's writing. So that Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, is queen during Shakespeare's career, and her grandfather was Henry VII, the one who defeated this king, Richard III. Okay, I think that's all I want to say now about the general background, um, except one more thing. The deposing of Richard is the fall of England into chaos and corruption. And the restoration, the ascending to the throne of Henry VII, when Richard III is defeated, is kind of a restoration, a redemption. And Richard is the man chosen by heaven to wipe out, to punish all the sins of all those people who have gone in between and corruptly come to power. And when he is done being a scourge of God, things are restored. That's how Shakespeare's seeing it in these two tetralogies, these two four-play groups. So now I will get us to the first scene we're going to do, and that is Act 1, Scene 1 of Richard III. The Yorks have killed King Henry. They've killed his son, and they've come to power. And the person in power at the moment is King Edward IV. He's not well. We don't know if he's not well because he's being poisoned or because of disease. Shakespeare doesn't tell us. But he's not well. He's not going to last long. The youngest son, who opens the play, is the hunchback, Richard III. He's misshapen. He wants to be the king. He doesn't care who is between his brother Edward and himself. He's going to get them out of the way. And I guess that's enough to say to begin Act 1, Scene 1 of Richard III.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York. And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, who am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to look a amorous looking glass, I, that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I, that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionably that dogs bark at me as I halt by them. Why, I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to see my shadow in the sun and descant upon mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these farewell spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I lain, inductions dangerous by drunken prophecies, libels and dreams to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate, the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, This day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Die, thoughts. Down to my soul here, Clarence comes. Brother, good day. What means this armored guard that waits upon your grace?
His Majesty, tendering my person's safety, hath appointed this conduct to convey me to the Tower.
Upon what cause?
Because my name is George.
Well, alack, my lord, that fault is none of yours. He should for that commit your godfathers. Or belike his Majesty hath some intent that you should be new christened in the Tower. But what's the matter, Clarence? May I know?
Yea, Richard, when I know, for I protest as yet I do not. But as I can learn, he hearkens after prophecies and dreams, and from the crossrow plucks the letter G, and says a wizard told him that by G his issue disinherited should be. And for my name of George begins with G, it follows in his thoughts that I am he. These, as I learn, and such like toys as these, hath moved his highness to commit me now.
Why, this it is when men are ruled by women. 'Tis not the king that sends you to the Tower, my Lady Grey, his wife. Clarence, 'tis she that tempers him to this extremity. Was it not she and that good man of worship, Anthony Woodville there, her brother, that made him send Lord Hastings to the Tower, from whence this very day is he delivered? We are not safe, Clarence. We are not safe.
By heaven, I think there is no man secure but the Queen's kindred and night-walking heralds that trudge betwixt the king and Mistress Shore. Heard you not what an humble suppliant Lord Hastings was to her for his delivery?
Humbly complaining to her deity got my Lord Chamberlain his liberty. I tell you what, I think it is our way, if we will keep in favor with the king, to be her men and wear her livery. The jealous o'erworn widow and herself, since that our brother dubbed them gentlewomen, are mighty gossips in the monarchy.
I beseech your graces both to pardon me. His Majesty hath straitly given in charge that no man is to have private conference, of what degree soever, with your brother.
Even so, and please your worship, Brackenbury, you may partake of anything we say. We speak no treason, man. We say the king is wise and virtuous, and his noble queen, well struck in years, fair and not jealous. We say that Shore's wife hath a pretty foot, a cherry lip, a bonny eye, and a passing pleasing tongue, and that the queen's kindred are made gentlefolk. How say you, sir? Can you deny all this?
With this, my lord, myself have naught to do.
Not to do? With Mistress Shore? I tell thee, fellow, he that doth naught with her, excepting one, were best to do it secretly, alone.
What one, my lord?
Why, her husband, knave. Wilt thou betray me?
I do beseech your grace to pardon me, and withal, forbear your conference with the noble duke.
We know thy charge, Brackenbury, and will obey.
We are the queen's abjects and must obey. Brother, farewell. I will unto the king, and whatsoe'er you will employ me in, were it to call King Edward's widow sister, I will perform it to enfranchise you. Meantime, this deep disgrace in brotherhood touches me deeper than you can imagine.
I know it pleaseth neither of us well.
Well, your imprisonment shall not be long. I will deliver you, or else lie for you. Meantime, have patience.
I must, perforce. Farewell.
Go, tread the path that thou shalt ne'er return. Simple, plain Clarence, I do love thee so that I will shortly send thy soul to heaven, if heaven will take the present at our hands. But who comes here?
Oops, there we go. Well, that was fun. Speaking as the director, I hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. I suppose we could have a little chat here. How did you feel that went for you, Tony? I thought it sounded great.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's always, it's sort of the modern actor's dilemma in a kind of ways that, you know, I thought instinctively it feels a little quick. And we were discussing how, you know, obviously, you know, Shakespeare is a quicker playwright than Miller or Williams or certainly Chekhov. But, you know, for the modern audience and their ear, and for the modern actor who wants to scratch at things, it's always a pull. So, you know, I tried to honor what we were talking about, you know, which is to move ahead. But it would be interesting if we were to do it again, to pull it back. Now, I don't know, you know, again, I mean, was that the speed that you were thinking of, or was it even too slow?
I don't think it needs to go any slower. I think, as I said, this interesting thing happens when one has had a chance to work on the details and sort of, you know, get down to the bare metal. That you can then trust that what you've discovered will come out, even if you move through it fairly quickly. And a thing I've noticed over and over, and really particularly with you, Tony, because you have such richness and such command of the language anyway, is that it tends to slightly force an actor to pick out the operative words, and which is always a thing. I mean, I know we all know Dakin Matthews in this group. I think he's always on about, you know, finding the operative words and letting the other stuff take care of itself. And I think particularly in a scene like this, which is, to my mind, quite straightforward, and the imagery is terrific, but it's not particularly complicated. I think you can trust that the audience, you know, when you're working the operative words, the audience will get it. You don't need, not that you're doing that, but one in general does not need to explain it. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's sort of an interesting dilemma, isn't it? Because it gets to how fast do you start a Shakespeare play? We all know as audience, you need, there's an audience makes an adjustment to the language. By and large, an audience will understand more of Shakespeare 15 minutes in than they do 5 minutes in.
Absolutely.
I'm not us and not a people I'm talking about your average audience. And so it's intriguing that this speech, which is the beginning and lays out the whole thing, of, you know, do you move ahead, or do you allow yourself, because you're setting up the story, to do it? I don't know.
I think you can do a little of each. You know, we've found that this speech is in sort of 3 sections. The sort of celebratory part of the beginning, you know, here's things are great, we've won, and this is, you know, the war is over. Then we get to something much more personal about how it doesn't affect you. And then there's this 3rd section where you move on. And I think, you know, you could, because in the 1st section in particular, you have many examples of how things have changed. You know, we're not on stage, we're dancing. We're not making war sounds, we're making this sounds. I think you can rely on the amount of imagery to carry you. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to get everything into one line, actually.
Right.
So,
Gotcha.
So I think you could perhaps move through that quickly, but then that gives you a license to quite slow down for your personal part. You know, like, but I'm telling you, this does not apply to me.
Okay.
And then you can find yet another energy for that 3rd part, which is, and here's what I'm going to do about it. You know, so everything is right. There are places where you can slow down, but I think the places where you don't have to, you really don't have to. You can step through it.
Can I add a comment to this?
Yeah.
Dakin's right about the operative words, but the operation of Shakespeare's words in just about every line is antithesis. He builds the drama out of oppositions or opposites or antitheses. And my experience is that if you're hitting the antitheses clearly, you can go as fast as you want. The audience does not get lost if the antitheses and the meaning through them is coming out clearly. And it takes less than 15 minutes for the audience to catch up to listening to Shakespeare when the actors begin the scene with those clear antitheses. And the feeling that you have to slow down and fill in is abolished when you're really nailing the antitheses all the way through. It becomes so dramatic that it moves, and
Right.
there's no slow or fast, doesn't matter. It moves at at a great pace, no matter how quickly it's going.
You know, I mean, I think that that's part of the deal. You know, that that tempo and how you manipulate tempo, how the speech, the text is always there, and it can be done rapidly, and but it's always the same. And actually, you know, what the audience is coming to hear, this may be scandalous to say, is not the text. It's the subtext. They can read the text at home. So consequently, that's why it's important, I think, as a modern actor, for you to negotiate something. Otherwise, you're off to the races, and I've experienced this as an actor. You're off to the races, and you think, shit, oh, excuse me, what the hell just happened?
Yes.
You aren't driving the Maserati, and this is a Bugatti, a Maserati. This is this is a boy. But you aren't the actor. You're being driven, and that's a big. It's an interesting sort of dilemma. I'm being honest as an actor, so that you don't think that it's that there's one way.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why I agree, and that's why I think you can find different tempi even within the same speech.
Right. Exactly.
And as I'm always sort of arguing for, you find those different tempi where I don't know who's watching us, but the technique with longer speeches is always to sort of find the place where you think the speech could end, but then you have to go into the next part of it.
Gotcha.
That brings you to a new energy, and the further apart those differences are, whether it's tempi or the sense of humor or how serious or whatever, the further apart you're willing to pull those, the more boldly you pull those apart, the more interesting it is. And I think you never have to worry about being, false to the character, because this is your Richard. This is Tony's Richard. You sort of can't do it wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to have another go at it and stop?
Oh, absolutely.
Stop talking. Stop me talking so much. Do we have time for that, Nathan? Is anyone listening? Can we?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. And just to add, I'd also be curious. I know we spent a lot of time chatting about the first part of the scene, but at some point, I'd love to hear from Russell. If there were things he discovered, or what he might have found challenging, or just in the rehearsals that you guys had. I'd love to hear Russell's experience as well.
Let's hear a little something now, and Tony can sit back for a second.
Oh yeah, I'm please.
What, Russell?
So we discussed a lot about status and the importance of that, and how that affects interactions between characters in Shakespeare scenes. So we started off with my first instinct, especially the kind of person I am, and honestly, the way I act at work, where I'm kind of on the lowest rung. I was kind of like, excuse me, guys. I know you guys are talking, but will you mind leaving, please? So then we played around with, what if I'm higher than them, and I say, all right, time to go, in the car, let's go. But so that was really fun to play with too. And I kind of think it's fun, even though it's a small character, but I like to think about what it's like to explore a regime change. Things are still kind of up in the air, And I'm kind of like, all right, do I stick with the king or do I? So I think Brackenbury's definitely like, I think the king's gonna be fine. So I can talk to these two guys like this, which, like in the end, spoiler alert, he's wrong. But
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
but yeah, so that's been really fun to play with like different statuses and yeah.
All right. Well, let's carry on then and not take up too much more time. I'm going to leave. Where am I? There we go.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the sun of York. And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, who am not made for sport of tricks, nor shaped to court an amorous-looking lass, I, that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated by feature of dissembling nature, unformed, definished. Hold on, I'm going to start again.
So good.
Thank you. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the sun of York. And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, who am not shaped for sport of tricks, nor made to court an amorous-looking lass, I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me when I halt by them. Why, I in this weak piping time of peace have no delight to pass away the time, unless it be to see my shadow in the sun and descant upon mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these farewell spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I lain, inductions dangerous by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Thy thoughts down to my soul. Here Clarence comes. Brother, good day. What means this armed guard that waits upon your grace?
His Majesty, tendering my person's safety, hath appointed this conduct to convey me to the Tower.
Upon what cause?
Because my name is George.
Alack, my lord, that fault is none of yours. You should for that commit your godfathers, or belike his Majesty hath some intent that you should be new christened in the Tower. But what's the matter, Clarence? May I know?
Yea, Richard, when I know, for I protest as yet I do not. But as I can learn, he hearkens after prophecies and dreams, and from the crossrow plucks the letter G, and says a wizard told him that by G his issue disinherited should be. And for my name of George begins with G, it follows in his thought that I am he. These, as I learn, and such like toys as these, hath moved his highness to commit me now.
Why, this it is when men are ruled by women. 'Tis not the king that sends you to the Tower. My Lady Grey, his wife, Clarence. 'Tis she that tempers him to this extremity. Was it not she and that good man of worship, Anthony Woodville, her brother there, that made him send Lord Hastings to the Tower, from whence this present day he is delivered? We are not safe, Clarence. We are not safe.
By heaven, I think there is no man secure but the Queen's kindred and night-walking heralds that trudge betwixt the king and Mistress Shore. Heard you not what an humble suppliant Lord Hastings was to her for his delivery?
Humbly complaining to her deity, got my Lord Chamberlain his liberty. I tell you what, I think it is our way, if we will keep in favor with the king, to be her men and wear her livery. The jealous, all-worn widow and herself, since that our brother dubbed them gentlefolks, are mighty gossips in our monarchy.
I beseech your graces both to pardon me. His Majesty hath straitly given in charge that no man is to have private conference, of what degree soever, with your brother.
Even so, and please your worship, Brackenbury, you may partake of anything we say. We speak no treason, man. We say the king is wise and virtuous, his noble queen well struck in years, fair and not jealous. We say that Shore's wife hath a pretty foot, a cherry lip, a bonny eye, and a passing pleasing tongue. And that the queen's kindred are made gentlefolks. How say you, sir? Can you deny this?
With this, my lord, myself have naught to do.
Naught to do with Mistress Shore? Ooh. He that doth naught with her, excepting one, were best to do it secretly alone.
What one, my lord?
Why, her husband, knave. Wouldst thou betray me?
I do beseech your grace to pardon me, and withal, forbear your conference with the noble duke.
We know thy charge, Brackenbury, and will obey.
We are the queen's abjects, and must obey. Brother, farewell. I will unto the king, and whatsoe'er you will employ me in, were it to call King Edward's widow sister, I will perform it to enfranchise you. Meantime, this deep disgrace in brotherhood touches me deeper than you can imagine.
I know it pleaseth neither of us well.
Well, your imprisonment shall not be long. I will deliver you, or else lie for you. Meantime, have patience.
I must, perforce. Farewell.
Go tread the path that thou shalt ne'er return. Simple, plain Clarence, I do love thee so that I will shortly send thy soul to heaven, if heaven will take the present at our hands. But who comes here?
That was, in my opinion, that was terrific. And I hope you didn't feel rushed. And I thought the differences you found, the different energies in those sections was just terrific.
Oh, good, good, good.
And Russell, your Brackenbury gets more and more secure in his status every time. It's great. I mean, that's forcing you to slightly out of your comfort zone as an actor, I think, and that's always a good thing. So,
Oh, thank you.
bravi a tutti.
Bravo, bravo.
Oops, there we go.
Sounds good.
So, Nathan, how does this work now? Unless, yeah.
Who comes here? It's Nathan. Back to move us on to the next scene. No, that was great. Thank you guys so much. It was really exciting to hear, you know, what all of you were working on, and I think you bring up. It was a really fascinating question, just because you're right. For a lot of audience members, there is that adjustment period, and yet, as we talked about, it's a very straightforward speech in terms of what he's attempting to communicate. And just playing with that, and I thought that was really fun. And you know, some of the comments that I did see was that a lot of people really enjoyed, even the first time, you know, Tony did the speech. They really enjoyed how you handled it. So, no, thank you guys for sharing that.
You know, there's no right. I'm not.
You're
right. It's you're always, you know, trying to figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost like. Well, I mean, theater and stand-up comedy are very similar, that, you know, if you were to do this for an audience, you would eventually find that rhythm that, you know, that works.
Exactly, yeah.
Totally.
That you feel like, oh, yeah, okay, they're with me. You know, I feel like they're on this ride now. And it's great how, you know, he so immediately gets to demonstrate what he's up to, that his brother shows up, and I mean, there's all these double meanings that we know what's going on, all that dramatic irony, but you know, Clarence has no idea.
Exactly.
And I thought
it is fun that in this particular play, the audience is ahead of what's happening from the beginning. They don't have to have been told. So
right.
you get these dollops of dramatic irony in the first 100 lines that normally you'd have to wait for.
Richard takes us into his private thoughts right away.
Yeah.
And makes us half guilty of everything he's doing, because we love his cleverness, even as we're horrified by what he's doing.
And I'll just add that I enjoyed the way you guys played the not to do, because it's a bit of a buried joke, but I thought it was fairly clear.
Good.
Cool.
I always reckon anything in Shakespeare, if you're not quite sure, it's a dirty joke. It's just,
Cool.
They had more expressions for having it off than, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes. Well, great. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. I think we can move to Act 4, Scene 4. Really appreciate the work you guys put into this, and wonderfully done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to the next one. Okay.
Yeah, we'll bring the women on for Act 4, Scene 4. Or, you know, however they want to come on to the stage. Yeah.
Bravi a tutti. Bravi.
We have the Italian contingent between Geoffrey and Gigi now handled.
He started it.
Grazie.
Hi to everybody. I'm the director. I don't really have any anticipation of speaking, but I wanted to introduce myself. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Nathan, for giving us the opportunity. It was super fun. And maybe I'll see you later. But I'll let Gideon speak for the scene.
Okay, I'm just going to introduce this second scene. It's Act 4, Scene 4. Richard III has now become king. He succeeded in inheriting the throne by killing everybody between himself and the throne. There are 3 women in this scene who come on to lament what's been going on. So the eldest is Henry VI's widow. That is, she's the widow of the Lancastrian king, Henry VI, the last Lancaster king. And she is still alive, and she's quite old. And she had prophesied that the new queen, the new wife of Edward IV, the Yorkist king, would also eventually be miserable. And now that has happened. Why? Because Richard has killed her two sons, the heir to the throne and the heir and the spare. Also here is the Duchess of York. She is the mother of the three Yorkist pretenders or kings. She's the mother of Edward IV, of Clarence, and of Richard. And so she's got this hideous youngest son who's been killing off her older sons and her grandchildren. And then there is the widow of Edward IV, this upstart widow that married the king, whom they were talking about in the first scene. And she's just lost her two sons, the heir and the spare, to the murderous intentions of Richard. So they're entering together successively. First Margaret speaks and then the others come in. And during this scene, you will hear Margaret give another prophecy about the end of the play, what's going to happen when all these crimes come to their fruition. And finally, Richard, as the audience knows, is defeated. So without more ado, here is a rehearsal of
So now prosperity begins to mellow and drop into the rotten mouth of death. Here in these confines slyly have I lurked to watch the waning of mine enemies. A dire induction am I witness to, and will to France, hoping the consequence will prove as bitter, black, and tragical. Withdraw thee, wretched Margaret, who comes here.
Oh, my poor princes. Oh, my tender babes, my unblown flowers, new appearing sweets. If yet your gentle souls fly in the air and be not fixed in doom perpetual, hover about me with your airy wings and hear your mother's lamentation.
Hover about her. Say that right for right hath dimmed your infant morn to aged night.
So many miseries have praised my voice that my woe-weary tongue is still in mute. Edward Plantagenet, why art thou dead?
Plantagenet for Plantagenet, Edward for Edward pays a dying debt.
Wilt thou, O God, fly from such gentle lambs and throw them in the entrails of the wolf? When didst thou sleep when such a deed was done?
When holy Harry died and my sweet son.
Dead life, blind sight, poor mortal living ghost, woes seen, world's shame, grave's due by life usurped, brief abstract and record of tedious days, rest thy unrest on England's lawful earth, unlawfully made drunk with innocent blood.
Ah, that thou wouldst as soon afford a grave as thou canst yield a melancholy seat. Then would I hide my bones, not rest them here. Who hath any cause to mourn but we?
If ancient sorrow be most reverend, give mine the benefit of seniority, and let my griefs frown on the upper hand. If sorrow can admit society, tell o'er your woes, again by viewing mine. I had an Edward till a Richard killed him. I had a husband till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst an Edward till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst a Richard till a Richard killed him.
I had a Richard too, and thou didst kill him. I had a Rutland too, and thou holpst to kill him.
Thou hadst a Clarence too, and a Richard killed him. From forth the kennel of thy womb hath crept a hellhound that doth hent us all to death. That dog that had his teeth before his eyes to worry lambs and lap their gentle blood, that excellent grand tyrant of the earth that reigns in galled eyes of weeping souls, a foul defacer of God's handiwork. Thy womb let loose to chase us to our graves. O upright, just, and true disposing God, how do I thank thee that this carnal cur preys on the issue of his mother's body and makes her pew fellow with others' moan.
O Harry's wife, triumph not in my woe. God witness with me, I have wept for thine.
Bear with me. I am hungry for revenge, and now I cloy me with beholding it. Thy Edward, he is dead that killed my Edward. Thy other Edward dead to quit my Edward. York, he is but boot, because both they matched not the high perfection of my loss. Thy Clarence, he is dead that stabbed my Edward. And the beholders of this frantic play, the adulterate Hastings, Rivers, Vaughan, Grey, untimely smothered in their dusky graves. Richard yet lives. Hell's black intelligencer only reserved their factor to buy souls and send them thither. But at hand ensues his piteous and unpitied end. Earth gapes, hell burns, fiends roar, saints pray to have him suddenly conveyed from hence. Cancel his bond of life, dear God, I pray, that I may live and say the dog is dead.
Oh, thou didst prophesy that I should wish for thee to help me curse that bottled spider, that foul bunch-backed toad.
I called thee then vain flourish of my fortune. I called thee then poor shadow, painted queen. The presentation of what I was. The flattering index of a direful pageant, one heaved high to be hurled down below. A mother only mocked with two fair babes. A dream of what thou wast, a garish flag to be the aim of every dangerous shot, a sign of dignity, a breath, a bubble, a queen in jest, only to fill the scene. Where is thy husband now? Where be thy brothers? Where are thy two sons? Wherein dost thou joy? Who sues and kneels and says, God save the queen? Where be the bending peers that flattered thee? Where be the thronging troops that followed thee? Decline all this and see what now thou art. For happy wife, a most distressed widow. For joyful mother, one that wails the name. For one being sued to, one who humbly sues. For queen, a caitiff crowned with care. For she that scorned at me, now scorned of me. For she being feared of all, now fearing one. For she commanding all, obeyed of none. Thus hath the course of justice whirled about and left thee but a very prey to time. Having no more but thought of what thou wast, to torture thee the more, being what thou art. Thou didst usurp my place, and dost thou not usurp the just proportion of my sorrow? Now thy proud neck bears half my burdened yoke, from which even here I slip my weary head and leave the burden of it all on thee. Farewell, York's wife and queen of sad mischance. These English woes shall make me smile in France.
Oh, thou so well skilled in curses, stay a while and teach me how to curse mine enemies.
Forbear to sleep the nights and fast the days. Compare dead happiness with living woe. Think that thy babes were sweeter than they were, and he that slew them fouler than he is. See, bettering thy loss makes the bad causer worse. Revolving this will teach thee how to curse.
My words are dull. Oh, quicken them with thine.
Thy woes will make them sharp and pierce like mine.
Why should calamity be full of words?
Windy attorneys to their clients' woes, airy succeeders of intestate joys, poor breathing orators of miseries, let them have scope. Though what they will impart help nothing else, yet they do ease the heart.
If so, then be not tongue-tied. Go with me, and in the breath of bitter words let's smother my damned son, that thy true sweet son's smothered. The trumpet sounds. Be copious in exclaims.
Nice. Come back, actors, female actors. Come back. Come back.
Do I have to bring the cat back too?
Oh my God. I didn't know who that was. I wanted you to pick that cat up and incorporate it in the scene, whoever it was. Like, next time, pick up your fucking cat. Incorporate it. Excuse my friend.
Damn cat comes at the most dramatic section of the thing as well.
You know, we're in our homes. We have to incorporate stuff. What can you do?
I think I have her locked out now. We'll see.
He was crying with grief along with all of you.
Right. I was amazed at how nervous this made me doing this.
Same.
Well, you're a chap. Nobody knew that.
Anyway.
I think the nerves were great because it's the best you've done it. It was absolutely brilliant. Just brilliant.
Thank you.
So Nathan, you're welcome to join us. I was going to ask that we go back and do parts of it if we have time. Unless Gideon wanted to make some commentary, or if the actors want to discuss their experience. Otherwise, we can just go back and do some bits of it.
I just have particular word things, but I'm not going to take time to go through them. I'll just say two things. One, at line 50, Angie.
Yeah, I know.
What do you mean? You know what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say that you swallowed the word hunt. I'm going to say that hellhound and hunt both start with an H, and the alliteration is purposeful. So you can use that.
Great.
And then when we've got the adulterate Hastings, Rivers, Vaughan, Gray, it's line 71. Adulterate modifies Hastings, but not the other three.
Yeah.
He's had an affair with Lady Shore.
I know.
Okay, so you can just separate those two. But those are my only. Ashley Dull, not whatever you were saying.
Did it again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Dull. Thank you.
And
Okay,
Kandace,
hold on. Gideon, can I show her? Look at my mouth. Dull.
Dull.
Go ahead and open it. Dull.
Dull.
Yeah.
like UH.
Dull. Dull.
Oh, UH. Okay, I was putting. Okay.
Dull.
Dull.
Yeah.
Dull. Okay,
And,
thank you.
Kandace, at line 136 at the very end, I know you were emotionally whispering, but we didn't hear the word if. It got kind of swallowed.
Oh, okay.
So if so, you can do what you want there, but we have to hear it.
Got it.
Good.
Are you guys up for messing around a little bit?
Sure.
Always.
I'll just say one, Ashley. So you've got to be on your script when you're not completely memorized. You cannot skip some Shakespeare words. You just can't. So
Yeah.
So you missed just a couple that I noticed. I wasn't on my script most of the time, but I did notice that you missed a few words. So the prophesied. Oh, that's prophesy. The time would come. You missed the time would come. So it's
Time would come, yeah.
It's Shakespeare. You can't not do it. It's better to do it
Yeah.
badly and no acting, but you have to have the words. I would never say that for anything else, but for this I would. Did the actors want to say anything about their experience? Angie did. Ashley or Kandace, do you want to say anything before we go back and do a little work?
Yeah, it was honestly such a pleasure to do this. At first, I've taken quite a bit of a break from Shakespeare, so coming back to it, it was such a cool opportunity to work with other actors, and being in our own homes, it's kind of weird, and you're like adapting to this environment. But it's been really nice to have a dramaturg involved in the process, because I do feel it does something for the work you're doing. So that's been such a pleasure, and working with some very strong women makes me always so very happy, because it's such a pleasure to have that opportunity. And you know, the boys had their fun, now it's our turn.
Exactly. Great, thank you.
I just had one question. I'll jump in from off stage. You know, I'm curious for all the actors, was there anything that particularly challenged you about this scene, either your role? I mean, obviously the Duchess is much older than Kandace, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the challenge. But I'm just curious if there was something that challenged you for all three of you.
The warm up, the prep work that goes into it, for sure, because we're coming into such a, if you will, an emotional scene where all of this death and sorrow, and if like 2 minutes before you were just watching something great on Netflix, that was definitely the hardest part, and trying to keep the focus in the Zoom room, if you will, versus being able to be in the room with the other actors and actually like vibe off of their energy and their feelings. Like I'm like, I wish I was in the same room with Angie to feel all of this like energy, because I'm like, oh, that would help. So trying to get it through
Sure.
a challenge.
Yeah. And along the same lines as Kandace, not having the opportunity to have a whole rehearsal process where we've worked the rest of the scenes coming up to this one, where we're just jumping right into this incredibly high stakes moment. I'd say that was definitely a challenge. A good challenge, but a challenge.
Did you like that the gimmick of turning the light out for the hiding?
It's great.
I thought of it at the very last second.
Thank you for
The thing glitched.
I loved it. Brilliant. Okay, should we just go back a little bit?
Totally.
So in the first beat, after Margaret has once you enter, Queen Elizabeth and a Duchess, just remember that this is the first beat is a prayerful one until Margaret reveals herself. Okay. So go internal. You know, it's not an external thing. It's an internal thing. You're together, but you're both in this kind of prayerful mode, you know, beseeching mode, beseeching God for help, I think. Yeah, so that's what I would say for that first beat. And then for the second beat, when Margaret arrives, for the Duchess, I would say, I don't know what your objective is, but I didn't know what you wanted in that moment. And I think if you allow yourself to receive the painful insults about your son, that all of this is essentially your fault, she's saying. All these murders would, you know, he came out of you. You're really the, you know, it's your fault. It's really your fault. I mean, it's a horrible thing to contemplate. I'm sure you have contemplated it before this moment. what the nightmare of being the mother of this horrific, human being.
Yeah.
Think what Mama Trump feels like. So find your objective. It might be something like to fight off your emotion, or to fight her off, or something, that you need to have some kind of internal fight that's going on.
Okay.
Gigi, can I add in?
Yeah.
When Kandace did I Had a Richard Too, I got that it was angry. And I think that's right, because Margaret, she's got a lot to weep over, but she was a pretty vile customer in the earlier plays. And she was responsible for the death of the Duchess's people. Her husband, York, and her other son, Rutland. So there's this combination of what you're saying, plus a real anger that part of this, and she's right about this, is revenge for the earlier sins of the Lancasters. That it's not only that the Yorks are evil and the Lancasters were good, they're all bad, which is why everybody has to die before England can be restored.
Yeah.
So I think she's voicing this double thing.
Yeah. And let's remember who she was known as, proud sis, and she had pride and temper and piety. But don't be afraid of that, Kandace. You can rise to match. You can match Queen Margaret in in sharpness. Okay, why don't we just if we have time, we can go further, but we're gonna run out of time if we just do notes. So why don't we just take it from Queen Margaret, well, why don't we take it from the top? Why don't we take it from the top? And then I'll stop you. Okay? Okay, everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. It's all right, Angie?
Yep. So now prosperity begins to mellow and drops into the rotten mouth of death. Here in these confines, slyly have I lurked to watch the waning of mine enemies. A dire induction am I witness to, and will to France, hoping the consequence will prove as bitter, black, and tragical. Withdraw thee, wretched Margaret, who comes here.
My poor princes, my tender babes, my unblown flowers, new appearing sweets, if yet your gentle souls fly in the air and be not fixed in doom perpetual, hover about me with your airy wings and hear your mother's lamentation.
Hover about her. Say that right for right hath dimmed your infant morn to aged night.
So many miseries have crazed my voice that my woe-weary tongue is still and mute. Edward Plantagenet, why art thou dead?
Plantagenet doth quit Plantagenet. Edward, for Edward pays a dying debt.
Wilt thou, O God, fly from such gentle lambs and throw them in the entrails of the wolf? When didst thou sleep when such a deed was done?
When holy Harry died, and my sweet son?
Dead life, blind sight, poor mortal living ghost. Woes seen, world's shame, graves due by life usurped, brief abstracted record of tedious days. Rest thy unrest on England's lawful earth, unlawfully made drunk with innocent blood.
Ah, that thou wouldst as soon afford a grave as thou canst yield a melancholy seat. Then would I hide my bones, not rest them here. Who hath any cause to mourn but we?
If ancient sorrow be most reverend, give mine the benefit of seniority and let my griefs frown on the upper hand. If sorrow can admit society, tell o'er your woes again by viewing mine. I had an Edward till a Richard killed him. I had a husband till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst an Edward till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst a Richard till a Richard killed him.
I had a Richard too, and thou didst kill him. I had a Rutland too. Thou helpst to kill him.
Thou hadst a Clarence too, and Richard killed him. From forth the kennel of thy womb hath crept a hellhound that doth hunt us all to death. That dog that had his teeth before his eyes to worry lambs and lap their gentle blood. That excellent grand tyrant of the earth that reigns in galled eyes of weeping souls. That foul defacer of God's handiwork. Thy womb let loose to chase us to our graves. Oh, upright, just, and a true disposing God, how do I thank thee that this carnal cur preys on the issue of his mother's body and makes her pewfellow with others' moan.
Oh, Harry's wife, triumph not in my woes. God witness with me, I have wept for thine.
Bear with me. I am hungry for revenge, and now I cloy me with beholding it. Thy Edward, he is dead, that killed my Edward. Thy other Edward dead to quit my Edward. Young York, he is but boot, because both they match not the high perfection of my loss. Thy Clarence, he is dead that stabbed my Edward. And the beholders of this frantic play, the adulterate Hastings, Rivers, Vaughan, Grey, untimely smothered in their dusky graves. Richard yet lives. Hell's black intelligencer, only reserved to their factor to buy souls and send them thither. But at hand ensues his piteous and unpitied end. Earth gapes, hell burns, fiends roar, saints pray to have him suddenly conveyed from hence. Cancel his bond of life, dear God, I pray, that I may live and say the dog is dead.
Oh, thou didst prophesy the time would come that I should wish for thee to help me curse that bottled spider, that foul bunchbacked toad.
Can I interrupt for a second, you guys? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was wonderful. How did that feel?
Much better.
It was amazing. It was great. So let's keep going from this moment. But Elizabeth, remember what's your subtext here for that little speech? Oh, I said it's prophesy the time would come.
Oh, you told me so.
Yeah. So you're acknowledging her. So acknowledge her. I mean, maybe that involves some humility. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you were going to maybe discover this?
Yeah, definitely.
Potentially. So, you know, it's not easy to acknowledge, but I think you're acknowledging it, and you're with her. So you're joining with her essentially in this moment, right?
Yeah.
To curse Richard.
Yeah.
And so and then now Margaret's going to have a long speech scorning you, right? Full of real horrific insults. So here, maybe I'll show myself so I can, yeah, that's better. So I think for that long speech, you know, it takes guts to just stand there and take it, right? You don't interrupt her. You let her go on and on and on and on. She really, you know, gives it to you. I don't know if you could look at her. You looked at her the whole time. I don't know. Maybe you can. But if you're going to look at her, then look at her with match her power. I don't think I
Yeah.
could look at her if I were Elizabeth telling me all that.
Yeah.
I think I would experience shame, but that's up to you. So what is your objective in that moment? You're experiencing shame. What is your objective to allow her to continue talking to you in that way? I mean, she's the senior to you, but still, what would your objective be during that speech? Do you know?
I mean, I think what I was going with was that this is the price for her teaching me how to curse. This hideousness is what I have to pay.
Good. So you're going to take it from her, right? So you're going to take it because you got to pay the price. So while you're taking it, what's your objective?
I guess I wasn't very clear on that.
Maybe something like just to maintain, to hold your head up, to I don't know, to fight internally, something. To take it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I see how that was definitely unclear with what I was doing. Yeah.
Some strong internal need. I don't really care what it is, as long as it's strong internal need to maintain yourself while she basically she's burning you alive, basically, for a long time. And you take it. And then finally, though, and she says goodbye, and then you beg her to stay because you want what from her?
I want the ability to curse from her. I want her poison.
Mm-hmm. So maybe you are trying to, maybe your objective during that long speech is to take on her vile energy. Maybe you need to adopt that. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you're something like that. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then the Duchess at the very end, when you say, after Margaret leaves, and then you have this brief scene with Elizabeth, and you say, why should calamity be full of words? I think you find a reason to really need that answer, that you need an answer to that question. Mm-hmm. Either you're asking, the universe, or you're asking Elizabeth, but really, really ask.
Okay.
And allow her response to, in the asking and maybe in her response, garner your energies, because you're about to go off. You're about to go and, let Richard have it, right?
Right.
So gather your strength.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to where we left off. If we have time to run through it, I think we do. Let's take it from Queen Margaret, from Elizabeth.
That I may live and say the dog is dead?
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay. Cancel his bond of life, dear God, I pray, that I may live and say the dog is dead.
Oh, thou didst prophesy that time would come that I should wish for thee to help me curse that bottled spider, that foul bunchbacked toad.
I call thee then vain flourish of my fortune. I call thee then poor shadow, painted queen, the presentation of but what I was. The flattering index of a direful pageant, one heaved high to be hurled down below. A mother only mocked with two fair babes. A dream of what thou wast, a garish flag to be the aim of every dangerous shot, a sign of dignity, a breath, a bubble, a queen in jest, only to fill the scene. Where is thy husband now? Where be thy brothers? Where are thy two sons? Wherein dost thou joy? Who sues and kneels and says, God save the queen? Where be the bending peers that flattered thee? Where be the thronging troops that followed thee? Decline all this and see what now thou art. For happy wife, a most distressed widow. For joyful mother, one that wails the name. For one being sued to, one that humbly sues. For queen, a very caitiff crowned with care. For she that scorned at me, now scorned of me. For she being feared of all, now fearing one. For she commanding all, obeyed of none. Thus hath the course of justice whirled about, and left thee but a prey to time. Having no more but thought of what thou wast, to torture thee the more for being what thou art. Thou didst usurp my place, and dost thou not usurp the just proportion of my sorrow? Now thy proud neck bears half my burdened yoke, from which even here I slip my weary head and leave the burden of it all on thee. Farewell, York's wife and queen of sad mischance. These English woes shall make me smile in France.
Oh, thou well skilled in curses, stay a while and teach me how to curse mine enemies.
Forbear to sleep the nights, and fast the days. Compared dead happiness with living woe. Think that thy babes were sweeter than they were, and he that slew them fouler than he is. See, bettering thy loss and makes the bad causer worse. Revolving this will teach thee how to curse.
My words are dull. Go quicken them with thine.
Thy woes will make them sharp and pierce like mine.
Why should calamity be full of words?
Windy attorneys to their clients' woes. Airy succeeders of intestate joys, poor breathing orators of miseries, let them have scope. Though what they will impart help nothing else, yet they do ease the heart.
If so, then be not tongue-tied. Go with me, and in the breath of bitter words, let's smother my damned son that thy two sweet sons smothered. The trumpet sounds. Be copious and exclaims.
Much better.
One thing this makes clear is why it's a good idea to have a run through the day of opening.
Good. Nathan, we took up all the time. I'm sorry, I wasn't really paying attention.
Oh, that's okay. Everybody can hear me. For some reason, I'm not able to turn my video on, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, we can see you.
Oh, all right. My screen is totally frozen. Then I don't know. Who knows what I'm watching? But that's okay. Yeah, no, it was really great to see. I just wanted to share some questions that people had from the chat. Mary asked, is it hard to play such tragic characters if you have not experienced tragedy in life? And certainly this is an enormous amount of tragedy, unlike most people experience. So, for any of the women, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes and no. It's really difficult to get yourself into the emotional zone for it when you're doing your emotional prep initially, but once you've gotten yourself into that space, it's quite a bit easier.
I agree. And I know Gigi and I talked a little bit about how grief is different when it's a mother-child relationship versus a, lover or a friend or something like that. But grief is something I feel like most people have experienced, and you can always pull on other people's experiences and their knowledge of it to help you build that. Yeah.
Great. Angie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Did you say Gigi?
No, Angie, I'm sorry. I know how much you love talking about acting, Angie.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, well.
I don't know what's to add.
Okay.
You only have your own tragedies, however small, or, I mean, because you're lucky, aren't you allowed to complain? I mean, sorry.
Right. Well, okay, so here's another question from.
Nathan, can I
go ahead.
I want to add to it because I know we're out of time, but I just want to add to that answer, and that is that as an actor, we walk in other people's shoes. One of our greatest tasks as an actor is to gain empathy so that we might grow our own emotional capacity, even if we haven't been tormented by a horrific grief, that we have had some grief and we can imagine what it feels like to have a greater grief. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the costs of being an actor, but that's part of our job. So
it's part of the audience's experience to have that experience of the play expand our own emotional range too. We empathize into what's going on the stage, and it broadens our experience emotionally as well as in every other way. So the actor becomes a medium of that, as the words are a medium of that, and the audience also experiences more than what they may have experienced in life.
Well, it may be harder to imagine yourself a queen than imagine yourself grief-stricken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.